The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. We're on Mannin Line today. Open line through till 1 o'clock. Text 166 177. WhatsApp, same number, 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 1368. Treasury Minister says it wasn't his department's decision to cut elective surgery at Manx Care. Manx Care recently reduced its weekly surgery list from 30 to 24.5 to save money. Chief Minister Mr Cannon said the board must come in on budget despite a £16.8 million projected overspend. So I just wonder what the situation is with Manx Care's finances. Any thoughts? What do you think we need to do about this? Also a note in from, let me see, this is, hi Jack. He said, Ireland banned e-scooters being carried on all public transport with effect from Monday, the 7th of October. This is due to fire safety concerns over their batteries. I just wonder what the steam packets policy is regarding e-scooters being carried or transported in cars or vans or camper vans on their fleet. Well, we'll ask the question. We'll find out. Thank you, Jack. Good to hear from you. Yes, it's true. People aren't able to take e-scooters on public transport from, it was earlier this week in Ireland, over fears that the batteries could catch fire. The NTA in Ireland, the National Transport Authority, said that the lithium-ion batteries are known to develop internal faults which can lead to overheating and combustion, burst into flames. Based on guidance issued by the National Transport Authority earlier this year in Ireland, public transport operators have prohibited the carriage of e-scooters on buses and trains, including those that can be folded or carried. Now, the restriction doesn't apply to e-bikes or mobility scooters. Apparently, they say that e-scooters are a relatively new product and were unregulated in Ireland until earlier this year. The quality control of their construction is therefore not as mature or well developed as e-bikes or mobility scooters, which have been around for ages. The tested batteries of e-bikes and mobility scooters don't pose the same level of risk. That's the situation in Ireland. We'll see what happens as far as the steam packet's concerned. It's Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. It's interesting that things like power banks, the things you use for charging up your phones, IATA, the International Air Transport Authority, they won't allow you to take more than quite a small battery pack on an aircraft. You're limited, in your hand luggage. And also, it seems that Amazon don't really want to be transporting them to the island either.
In what way? They won't send them? They won't carry them? What is it?
I think that you're limited to, I think it's something like 30,000 milliamp hours or that type of capacity. So, one that, I don't know, about the length of your hand. But you think of the scale of the batteries in an electric vehicle that will go on the boat. Unfortunately, something like the Felicity Ace, which was that huge car carrier that sank off the Azores a while ago and took out, 4,000 vehicles, and they reckon that they found evidence that it was a Porsche Taycan electric vehicle that actually went on fire and took the whole thing down. So unfortunately, it may take something really nasty before there's any proper legislation.
And we still haven't. The steam packet always say every time that our first priority is safety of passengers, which is we've taken as given, but we don't quite know what their remedies are if there's ever an electric vehicle fire on board the boat.
Yeah, electric vehicles, the batteries are at the bottom. So the fire comes out from the venting ports at the bottom. So if you put a fire blanket over it, what happens to the to the bit underneath the car that's melting, because those fires, I mean, they're over 2,700 Celsius, which is way above the melting point of the actual metal of the boat. So makes you wonder how that would go. Anyway, hopefully it won't come to that. Just listening to various callers on your show about, Manx Care and DHSC not only cutting services, including elective surgeries, to save a tiny amount of money relative to the problem with the spiralling out of control budget. But it's interesting to see what's happening right now in Canada's assisted dying program. And before anyone says that Canada is irrelevant to us, I'm referencing a recent news article directly from the British Medical Journal titled "Assisted Dying, Disability Advocates Launched Legal Challenge to Canada's Law." This article talks about the secondary legislation to Canada's medical assistance in dying, known as MAID, in 2021. And the secondary legislation is known as Track 2, which describes eligibility criteria for people to enroll in assisted dying, but are not faced with imminent death, which is sort of the slippery slope that I've spoken about, Peter Murcott's concerned about, quite a few people are. This legal challenge has been triggered as figures reveal that disabled people are choosing assisted dying due to lack of support from the Canadian Health Service. And the numbers are doubling every year. An extra 250 people, roughly, disabled people, are being euthanized per year because basically they've given up on life due to lack of support.
Hang on a minute. When you say euthanized, have they elected for assisted dying? I mean, they've not been chosen and picked out. These people have consented to it.
They're consented due to a lack of support, making their lives untenable. And we're seeing that now here. I mean, when you're starting to pull services, I mean, we talk about progressive. I mean, everything from the number 28 bus to the calf, all the way through, everything is being withdrawn at the moment. So it's not really progress in the traditional sense of how we see progress. Shocking numbers, including the fact that the uptake of assisted suicide in Canada exceeded all expectations of both the Canadian government and of those who were against it. MAID was implemented in Canada in 2016, and in that first year there was 1,018 people that enrolled in it.
I mean, it's an awful long way, though. I mean, you're stretching things to say that our current financial straitened times could result in that surely here.
Well, this legal challenge is backed by several disabled associations, such as Inclusion Canada, Indigenous Disability Canada, the Council of Canadians with Disabilities, and the Disabled Women's Network Canada. Executive Vice President of Inclusion Canada, Krista Carr, has said, people are dying, and we're witnessing an alarming trend where people are electing to make use of MAID because government health care support is being withdrawn. So you've got to ask the question, Canada is seeing a similar trajectory to us in the sense that the health service seems to be in a decline. I mean, the irony is not lost on me that Laurie Hooper is a chartered accountant but seems to have lost control of the account for Manx Care, doesn't he, really? It does make you wonder. Lots of people have said that there's just too many people in government that are just, or in the health service that are doing all the documentation, and this is becoming untenable in terms of the costs. When you start sort of saving 1 or 2% by actually removing surgery, you're not really focusing on what the main sort of elephant in the room problem is.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate that point. Thanks for calling us. I think, have you got a swarm of bees near your phone, or what's that noise that keeps arriving?
Oh, right. It's absolutely perfect at my end.
Okay. All right. Must be me. All right. Okay, Julian.
Thanks, Andy.
Good to hear from you.
Cheers.
Thanks for being with us today. People are constantly having a go at Bus Vannin, says Chris at Port Erin Pets. But here's an incident. This morning I'm in Port Erin Pets, saw an elderly gentleman on this side of the road wave at the bus, well away from the bus stop. The driver stopped, gave him time to cross over and get on without rushing him. So well done, that driver. Happy to pass that along as well. I agree that all the money spent on fireworks over the Isle of Man could be spent on people needing operations, say Cliff. Different budgets. I know it's easy to conflate the two, but this is down to the fact that Port Erin aren't going to have any fireworks. The local authorities confirmed there won't be a display this year. The chair of Port Erin Commissioners, Godfrey Egie, says the money could hold cost of fireworks displays better spent on other events. The local authority confirmed it's not going to be holding a display on bonfire night after not budgeting for it. Well, that's quite easy if they've not put the money aside not to have it. While the event has been well attended in the past, the cost of a 15-minute display is anywhere between £7,000 and £10,000, which Mr. Egie says can be spent on other events through the year. Hang on, if you've not budgeted for it, how can it be used on other... Anyway, they probably know their business. Mr. Egie says the commissioners have considered the bay's designation as a marine nature reserve. You're going to miss the fireworks in Port Erin? And broader, what do you think about the firework displays on the Isle of Man? I mean, it is fun, isn't it? Let's face it, everybody loves a good firework display, and lots of people do go to venues with big firework displays, and they do take money with them. But anyway, got any thoughts? I'm guessing, by the way, you can't take the money from the fireworks budget from Port Erin Commissioners and give it to Manx Care. Wilf's on now. Hi, Wilf.
I've got several little bits of things here, but one of the Julian has just been on about electric cars again, and I've just heard on the news that the post office has got a load more vans.
They have, yes. They go in all electric.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stupid people about. So there we go. We're not going into that. I've been running back and forward to Peel lately, because it's the things I've got to do down there, and I know fellas down, I know fishermen and all down there, you see, and the fellow was telling me, well, he told me several things, but he says, I'll get you more information. But anyway, one of them was, the government bought themselves an electric boat. Now, that's one of these fast things, something to do with a harbour board or whatever. And they got this thing and it put it on trial and took it out and flying around the bay, and of course the batteries went flat. And it had to be dragged back in again, and it's never been seen since. It's been put in a field somewhere. He's going to find out where it is for me. So that's just one of the things.
When was it, Wilf?
Oh, this is only a matter of a month or two ago. Not very long ago.
Okay.
Anyway, that's just one thing. I mean, he's going to find these things out for me, then I'll come back to you now. The other one was, or one of the other ones was, a friend of mine, he listens to Channel 4 radio. And apparently, wasn't I telling you a while ago about Norway banning scallop dredging?
And they're attracting them with floodlights or something, you said?
Doing it with lights, yeah. They're doing it with lights, and because it messed up the cod fishing, and now the cod are coming back now. They've banned the scallop dredging. But this other one was that apparently they found out now that the seabed everywhere in the world, the silt on the bottom, holds or hides away more carbon than all the trees in the world. They found that out now. The seabed is much more, doing us good, if you like. And it says, but as soon as you start to rake it up and root at it, it releases the carbon. But that was just another one. This is a good one. This is Peel as well. Now, we all know that the gulls are starving. That's a known fact. But we're not allowed to feed the gulls. DEFRA says we mustn't feed the gulls. Although they're starving, we mustn't feed them. Now then, the people that do the scallops in Peel, clean them and what have you, now they can't get rid of the shells. Now they used to take the shells and dump them a bit, there's a side road at Fenella Beach, and they used to go out there with a skip truck and tip them over the cliff. That fed the gulls, that fed the fish and all the rest of it, and that's why Fenella Beach looks like it's one of these foreign beaches, all nice blue water, because it's not sand, it's crushed shell. That reflects that turns it blue anyway.
Right.
But they're not doing it no more. They're not allowed to do that anymore. DEFRA says, no, you mustn't do that anymore. So they've got to think, what are we going to do with these shells? Now, they've got to be cleaned before you can crush them. They're not allowed to use them anymore for drainage, which they were doing for quite a while, in ditches. They're not allowed to use them anymore for that. They're not allowed to dump them at sea. They're not allowed to clean them, and the cleanings of them, I used to go there a number of years ago, and I would get a tin full of what they call cleanings off the shells because it was good fishing bait. Now, I don't know, can you still do that or not now, but anyway, they're not allowed to get rid of that. They're not allowed to take that and dump that at sea.
Who's saying all this, Wilf? Who's stopping them from doing this?
Government. DEFRA.
Oh, DEFRA.
DEFRA, yeah. They're not allowed to do this, not allowed to dump them at sea, and of course that's where they come from, but anyway, they're not allowed to put them back there. And that would feed the fish, that would feed the gulls and all the rest of it. But this is the good bit, or the bad bit, whatever you like to call it. They're not allowed to do anything with them, these shells, anymore. There's more to it than that, but I can't go into all that. I will do later on, but next time on or whatever. But anyway, so they're not allowed to get rid of these things. They don't know what to do with them. They can't crush them or anything like that. DEFRA says the gulls, although they're starving, now we should feed them. We don't feed them. DEFRA feeds them. The ordinary person not allowed to feed them. DEFRA's going to... The talk is now, and this is true, seeing we're catching herring, we're allowed to catch herring again, DEFRA says, or they're talking about, paying the fishermen to go out to catch herring to feed the gulls. Can you believe that? And this fellow reckons it's true, and he's going to give me more information on it.
How come the gulls are starving? How come? Are there more of them, or less to eat, or what is it?
No. There's less gulls now than ever there was, because there's nothing for them to eat. They don't get any fish anymore. There's no fish thing. The only fish they get, or bits of fish, whatever it is, when they're scallop dredging, whatever, and then they pull the scallop dredge up, and then bits fall over the side.
Right.
They might get something there, but the only other food they get is people feeding them. But you're not allowed to feed them, although they're starving. I mean, I can't see any of this sense anyway. But here's one now. This is just the last little bit. Years ago, and this is true because I've seen it. A number of years ago, when we had the tip down the Point of Ayr, the gulls were nesting down there and feeding down there, and they were thriving. Also, all other birds went down there because the tip is a good feeding area, and we had a lot of ravens down there. And they were the Queen's bird, now they're the King's bird, because they keep them over in their palace, whatever it is.
The Tower of London, They have them.
That's the one, and they say eventually, if they fizzle out or whatever, they all die out, then the thing will fall, king will fall, whatever. Anyway, so we had all these ravens feeding down on the tip as well, and then the terns were nesting on the beach, which they do every year, and they've spotted, or they found out, that the ravens were taking the eggs of the terns, and they were also, if there's any young ones born and managed to, they were eating them as well. So what did DEFRA do? Shot 40 of them.
Shot 40 ravens?
Shot 40 ravens. Now, that's not well known, but it is now, but I know all about it because I was there at the time.
When was this?
Oh, a number of years ago now, about 10 years ago or so. When we were tipping down there. When the tip was in full go.
Yeah,
you know? So there you are. That'll do for now, but I'll find up some more information on what I'm telling you.
All right. Okay, Wilf, we appreciate that. Thanks for that.
Oh, okay.
26 minutes past 12. That's why Fenella Beach looks the way it does. Is that so? And I didn't know. Did you know that the gulls are starving just because there isn't as much fish being landed as they used to be? And that's why they're always begging and diving around promenades. Certainly in Peel they are. And what do you think about... we'll find out more about that electric boat. If anybody's got information on that, we appreciate that. If you could do get in touch. The only politician who will roll his sleeves up and admit that he's made a mistake should be put in charge as Health Minister. Reinstated. Rob Callister should be reinstated as Health and Social Care Minister. Rob Callister admitted that he made a mistake. He will always fess up. Rob for the job, says Adam. Well, let's assume first he'd have it if he were offered it. And, of course, there is an incumbent at the moment, Mr. Hooper. I've been hearing that the government needs to make savings in all departmental budgets. I read yesterday's Examiner. The government's gifted £50,000 to FC Isle of Man. Surely this money can be better spent elsewhere, not on Sunday League pub team football. It's a shocking waste of money, says Francis Francesca on 762. I think I have to put you right there, Frank. FC Isle of Man plays in the Northwestern Premier League. It's not a Sunday League football. It's far from it. And I don't know whether the government actually gives them money. I think there's some sort of deal regarding the bowl. But we talked about it a while back, didn't we? They reckon that the FC Isle of Man brings more than £1 million to the Isle of Man by bringing visiting spectators. I mean, last weekend, Ramsbottom United, who were top of the league, brought a lot of spectators. It was October, and getting that number of spectators in October, well, anyway, that's the thought. Two types of ravens, of course, there. The ravens on the football pitch and the ravens that Wilf was talking about. Ravens killing the terns. That's amazing. E-scooters should never have been legalised, says 068. They're dangerous in every way and they should be banned, says 068 Anonymous. The ban on fossil fuel heating on new properties from the 1st of January. How is this going to affect affordable housing, says John 557. I've got a message in from... this is... Let me look. Oh, Andy. Oh, Charles. Hi, Charles. Well done to Port Arran commissioners as regards fireworks. It's money up in smoke. It is. Why should we celebrate Guy Fawkes Night on the Isle of Man anyway? It was the Houses of Parliament he tried to blow up, not Tynwald. Some will say he should have. Thank you, Charles. We won't go that far. Oh, and of course, with that time of the year now, when we're correcting everybody when they say Halloween, when we all know it's Hop Tuna. Just watched a documentary about an Irish fishing boat. The boat was solely fishing in Manx water off the Calf of Man and was catching 500 boxes of haddock per week and landing the fish back in Ireland. Why aren't our own fishermen catching haddock, says Pat. Manx Care's chief exec called the reduction in surgery list a cooling, says Rich, of non-elective surgery. But people don't realise that a surgery list can have hundreds of patients on it, so they're not taking one or two people who could be affected by this. 100 might find their elective hip surgery postponed, the very thing we gave Synaptics, this is this Scottish company, £18 million to come and do, and deal with the waiting list initiatives, which they've done a very good job of. Many people have had new hips, knees, cataracts and what have you. But the worst, says Rich, is that in the long interview with Teresa Cope on the Manx Radio website, manxradio.com, she says even cancer services are on the so-called cooling of surgery lists. But the cancellation of cancer surgeries appears to have been glazed over. Thank you, Rich. I see they're getting well on with that ugly concrete wall on the promenade, says Maureen and Frank. It looks high enough so it blocks any view of the beautiful sea if you can find to a wheelchair. I'd like to know who signed the planning application to pass it, says Frank. Lots of people moaning about this seawall. Have you seen it? It looks a fair old monstrosity, doesn't it? I mean, maybe we'll get used to it. Maybe they got a plan up their sleeve with that seawall on Douglas Promenade. Maybe they're going to paint it. And if they did paint it, and I'm not joking, because you can often, what's it called, trompe l'oeil. They've done this with the energy from waste plant and also the Pulrose power station. They put something at kind of a little bit higher and make it attractive, and it takes away from the ugliness of it. So if we're going to do this with the seawall on Douglas Promenade, could you tell me what colour we should have it? Do you think it should be pink, yellow, green or blue? Would that take the sting out of it, really? Not just ugly concrete, but pretty. Or maybe stripes, you never know. Camouflage, even. Pink, yellow, green, or blue. Well, how can I put it? Let me make it more flowery. Jonquil, salmon, ultramarine, or lime. What do you think we should do? It could be a talking point, really. Right by the halfway horse tram, on your left, is the jonquil, ultramarine, lime and salmon wall. If you live in Upper Douglas, you wouldn't think the gulls were declining. There are far too many gulls in Upper Douglas. They make residents' lives hell with their noise and aggressive behaviour. Maybe they're just hungry. The cracks in the new sea wall will now allow the salt water and blow the concrete off. Great, says Martin. Well, we'll see. You never know. It may be a stunning success. I can't figure out what they're going to do when the beach starts building up on the seaward side of it. Will they take it down to what it used to be, or just wait until it comes over the top? The electricity capacity of the Isle of Man, not only electric vehicles, will add AI will consume 85 to 134 terawatt hours every year by 2027, says John. Where'd you get your information from, John? AI seems to go under the radar where the use of electricity is concerned, doesn't it? But it does take up an awful lot. Server farms take up an awful lot. And the server farms, there are places in America as big as villages that are just complete server farms, and they take up megawatts, terawatts even, of electricity. Maybe they know more than we do. We should paint it brown to hide the mess, says Paul. What colour do you think this seawall should be? Gulls are a nuisance because people feed them. You'd come back for more if it was easy pickings. I've even seen people throwing food to them in gardens instead of putting their scraps in the bin. Well, it depends what your view is of the gulls. Are they flying longtails? Are they vermin? Or are they pretty birds? What would you do? Paint the wall with a picture of the hidden sea, says John. Well, that is clever. A mural we could have, the sea mural on the promenade. Look nice, wouldn't it? Seagulls are venturing inland and people should just get used to it because we're taking their natural food away from them, says Paul. Here's Henry, who says, I often see the gulls circling around the sea off the bottom of Broadway. Is this because the way pipe is open? It may have something to do with that. When they open the way pipe, maybe there are more fish around there, or maybe the gulls are drinking the water. I wouldn't have thought that, would you? We can't afford to paint the seawall, so keep it natural concrete and no artists. What do you think the Treasury Minister said about Manx Care? The pressures on Manx Care. And remember, the Treasury Minister is a GP.
As Treasury Minister, it's the responsibility for me to balance the budget and come to Tynwald and to the country once a year to show where the taxpayers' money is being spent. I think it's the responsibility for all departments to come in on budget, but obviously we also appreciate that there are significant pressures on them in terms of the legacies of the high inflation we've had over the last 2 years, but also above inflation pay increases as well, which, for instance, in Manx Care are an additional risk of up to £4.5 million. So we do understand that, and we are doing as much as we can with all departments to give them the tools and the resources they need to try to come in on budget.
Now, since April, there has been the higher income tax rate that went up 2% in your budget in February, and that was meant to be ring-fenced for health. And now, with this elective surgery announcement, we're essentially seeing less from the health service than before that 2% increase came in. What are taxpayers actually getting out of that?
Yeah, you're very right. I mean, and it gave me no pleasure to have to put up income tax as a temporary measure while we looked at other funding streams for the health service. I mean, the Manx Care budget was an increase of £43.8 million. Part of that was the 2%, part of that was additional revenue. That's gone really towards the existing services, improving services, especially the quality and safety of services, which is something people often don't see if they walk into a GP surgery or walk into Nobles. But we know that with the CQC examination, there was a lot of money that needed to be invested to improve quality and safety. What we've had this week is the announcement by Manx Care that they are adjusting the way that they run the theatres. Actually, a lot of departments in the UK do this anyway. As we approach the winter, they scale down some of their elective surgery to create capacity for winter pressures. But also Manx Care are going to be using those consultants to actually clear some of the other waiting lists, which are the waiting list for outpatient appointments. I think they've done this in a responsible manner. I know that it hasn't been popular, but they've been quite open about the reasons for this and the reasons why they need to do this. And there will be other issues coming up. I mean, when Laurie Hooper gave the mandate and moved it in Tynwald, he did say that it was going to be tight to stick to this budget, and there will have to be difficult decisions to make in terms of how we prioritise the competing objectives of long-term transformation against short-term delivery. But what Manx Care have been quite clear on saying is that they will absolutely prioritise emergency services and crisis services and make sure that those are available right through the winter seasons.
There he is, Alex Allinson, MHK, Dr. Allinson, our Treasury Minister, talking about who'd have thought we'd be where we are with this. If you got any thoughts, then do get in touch. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Anything else as well, we're open line, even if it's about shells. And what's happening, the electric boat in Peel, I'd never heard of that before. And have you seen the story about, we talked about floodlit scallops before. It's happening in Scandinavia, but primarily in Norway, where instead of going down and dredging the floor, and as Will said, that it disturbs the floor, but B, as rather than a carbon capture, it turns into a carbon release. They put giant floodlights down, and apparently, like moths, the scallops are attracted to the lights, and they float up. Don't ask. Seawall. We can't afford to paint it, so keep it a natural concrete. The halfway horse tram, view the sea only by riding the tram, says Martin. As long as we've got it, perhaps you could paint the wall on Douglas Promenade in Manx tartan, or perhaps paintings of our current MHKs, so they're safe for posterity, says Ian. Yes, but who would you start with? There are seawalls at Castletown and Port Erin, not a problem, says L. But would you build a new one if you didn't have one? The chairman of the planning committee at the time, says David, was David Ashford, MHK, chair of the planning committee. So did he sign the planning permission for the sea wall? Let's have a look here. A note in just to say no point in painting the new sea wall as the DOI can't paint and maintain what they've already got. Look at the old colonnade facing the Tower of Refuse, the sea terminal side. There are broken windows and rusty streaks, and that's the first thing that visitors see. Tony's with us now. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. It's turned out to be a nice day.
Well, I'll hold on that, waiting for the hurricane to turn up. So, what I wanted to just make a comment was, I don't know how the Minister for Money can turn around and make an explanation that says, well, we've had all these increasing costs from above inflation pay rises, when he's one of the people that's had an above inflation pay rise as an MHK. And I think that what we should be doing is not cutting the health service. I think we should be cutting the MHKs and their costs. And they should be volunteering this. And then they should be increasing tax on those with over £60,000 of increase of salary. Because that's the sort of level at which all of the keys and a lot of the background for that, they're all getting paid that sort of money, all the way up to over £100,000 and plus. So I don't see how he can possibly stand there and say these things with a straight face. The problem is they should have changed the tax system when he brought this 2% in. It should have been made in a graduated fashion. And even Bonzo agrees with that. And Bonzo at least has got a clear picture that, OK, we don't need to cut loads of people out of the background work, but we do need to get rid of some of the costs. And the costs are basically at the top. And the way to get that back is to go and tax them a bit more. So I don't see how he can stand there and say this, that nurses have above inflation pay rises, etc., but MHKs haven't. He didn't mention that, did he? He left that out. I just find it very, very galling that they seem to think that they shouldn't be looked at. And they should be, because they're part of the problem. All the time, the MHKs are paid this much money and not taxed appropriately, they're part of the problem. They're not the solution.
How do you square that with, we are a low-tax jurisdiction, aren't we? Or are we nowadays?
We're a low-tax jurisdiction, but that low tax should apply to the poorest people, not to the high earners. So, low-tax jurisdiction, if you said, OK, you earn £60,000, we're going to tax you 6% extra, that would still be low tax compared to the UK. And that's what we're comparing ourselves to. And yet, if you're earning £22,000 a year, you're going to be in deep trouble because costs have gone up and basically so is your tax. So you're now even worse place than you were before. And how they expect young people to stay here in this sort of regime, I do not know.
Anyway, getting back to Manx Care, is there an easy way out of this?
There's never anything easy, Andy, because they've made such a mess of it. If you want my opinion, I would say the first thing to do is to get rid of Manx Care. It was brought in to try and take the focus off of the DHSC's failures. So that's the usual thing. OK, we've completely failed at this. Hand it over to somebody else. Make somebody else responsible. They should get rid of the Manx Care completely. It costs us an absolute fortune to pay all these high-priced people who don't live on the Isle of Man to come over here and sit around the table and make decisions that cost more money. Any idiot can do that. You don't need a board to do that. Any idiot can do that. What you need is somebody who's looking at Manx Care for the Isle of Man and say, what is our long-term objective here? And have a long-term objective. We should be looking at, and should have been looking at for the last 5 years, increasing the private healthcare sector on the Isle of Man so people can come here and get healthcare at the highest standard, and we can then use that system to try and help the Isle of Man at a lower cost.
Oh, I see. So you get a kind of Rolls-Royce facility for the private sector, and our public sector can use the facilities.
Well, that used to be the case until they got rid of all the private sector. There's a whole wing at the hospital that was empty, which was the private healthcare section. And that used to work very, very well. But then, I can't remember who it was, but one of the people that doesn't think that's a good idea in the government at the time decided to get rid of it all.
Okay.
And all of the experts that they had at the time said, I've had enough of this, I'm going, bye. And they all left.
Okay.
So now we're back to a medium-rate healthcare system, and it's not good. A medium-rate healthcare system is that, and complete and utter chaos in how it operates. And you can't get anything done because there is no healthcare on the Isle of Man that's private. which is a good quality healthcare.
Okay,
and
all
if
right.
you had good quality healthcare, you'd get more money.
Appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for calling.
All the best. Bye.
Good to hear from you. The Manx Labour Party has been talking about this. Treasury, they say, need to start thinking outside the fixed mindset of taxing workers more to pay for the health service. The Manx Labour Party is calling for the government department to look at additional sources of revenue as questions continue to be asked about how Manx Care is funded. Party leader of the Manx Labour is Joni Farragher, MHK.
Manx Labour Party has always obviously stood for progressive taxation, which is a system in which the people with the broadest financial shoulders, the wealthiest people essentially, pay more than the poorest in our society. But there are also a lot of other ways that Treasury could look to raising additional revenue that they don't ever seem to look at. Capital gains, inheritance, raising the tax cap. There just does seem to be this very, very fixed mindset that the only way that we can raise revenue is by taxing workers. And that's created quite an imbalance on our island. And I think in the last budget, when the Treasury did add an additional 2% onto the highest tax band and didn't change thresholds, that has created quite an unfair situation, quite an unequal situation, essentially, for Manx workers. So we absolutely would not want to see Manx workers taxed anymore. I really do think we're at the limit there, and it would not be fair at all. It would not be equitable to put any more of the financial burden upon workers. But there are several ways that can be explored by Treasury, as I've already mentioned, and I really do think that this is the time that we need to start looking at additional sources of revenue. I mean, it's a difficult decision for people to make, and it could be, in my view, something that needs to go out to the Manx public. Do we want to retain a free at the point of use model, or do we want to actually start paying for our surgery when we go in for it? And that, that's very fundamental to our core values as Manx Labour Party. We believe that everybody should have access to health services, and in order to get that model working, we need to have the revenue behind it.
That's the Labour Party, the Manx Labour Party's leader, Joni Farragher, talking about it. What do you think about that? She was talking about capital gains tax, inheritance tax on the Isle of Man, and the tax cap rather than taxing workers. Any thoughts? Well, text, email, call and WhatsApp. Sharon says, I think we should get Banksy to paint the seawall on Douglas Prom. It will be worth a fortune then. Yeah, but people might take it away. Oh, I see. Sharon, it's good to hear from you. Thanks for that.
Hi, I'm David Todd, and I want to wish Manx Radio a happy 60th birthday.
After Mannin Line today, Kelly's Eye with Peter Kelly and David Callister at the Trafalgar Hotel.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery with top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acura, Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
When you ask people what they need from their bank, it's usually pretty simple.
A fantastic range of savings accounts that suit different customer needs.
Being able to speak to a real person who treats you with respect.
It isn't much to ask, is it? Well, at Guernsey Bank Skipton International, that's exactly what we offer. Savings products at some of the best rates with a commitment to excellent personal service. For more information, visit skiptoninternational.com or call 01481 730 730. Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the GFSC and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. See dcs.gg.
Where's your master? Well, he's gone to get some garden tools and compost from Northern Fuels and Country Supplies at the Old Derby Junk. Who knew they did such a great range of garden supplies, like bespoke sheds made to order, plus fencing supplies, tools and garden furniture, including tables and chairs. We might even get you a new doghouse. And later on, when I say ho ho ho, I'm not being jolly. Galley. That's the weeding plan. Transform your outdoors with Northern Fuels and Country Supplies. Call in or visit on Facebook.
Coming up, we have another winning weekend here on Manx Radio. And this time, we're giving you the chance to win £200 to put towards your next car service at Quayside Tyre and Service Centre. The team will get your car winter ready with a comprehensive service. Book in today and drive with confidence right through the winter months. To win, all you need to do is listen out for our winning question, which we'll ask on air right across the weekend. Once you've heard it, text your answer to 166 177. Make this your winning weekend with Quayside Tyre and Service Centre and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
10 to 1, and Marie's with us now. Hi, Marie.
Hello. With regards to Manx Care's overspend, and the clip regarding our Treasury Minister's comments as well, also taking in Julian's comments earlier, may I just remind one and all that our Treasury Minister is indeed the person who introduced the private member's bill on assisted dying. Also, the difference between teetered, increasing doses and more frequent doses of drugs in order to relieve pain and suffering, and the administration of a single large bolus of drugs lies under medical ethics with the word intention. If the intention is to end life, this is murder. As simple as that. QED. You have in your hand or in your file a copy of 14 letters that I, earlier on this year, sent out to 14 of our MHKs, Andy.
Yes.
And I delivered that by hand to your office on the 26th of September.
And what did they say?
I beg your pardon?
What did they say?
What did who say?
The MHKs, did they reply to you?
I had 4 replies, and I wrote that on the top of my copy that I handed in to Chrissy, actually, on the 26th of September, for her to pass on to you. 4 replies. And I then, subsequently, sent out another 14 to the same MHKs. No replies. That's all I want to say. Your listeners can make up their own minds as to which way this is going.
I appreciate it. All right, Marie, thanks for calling today.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. 7 minutes before 1. Apparently, the Manxman is in dry dock at the moment. She was being mended, apparently. They repaired the bump, but apparently the Manxman is in dry dock over there. They're doing, apparently they're looking at the vibrations that they weren't there. Those non-existent vibrations apparently are being attended to as well. And is it true the Waterloo dock, you know, our Princess Half-Tide dock, the Liverpool ferry terminal, apparently it's called Waterloo Dock now, and apparently the dredgers were at it yesterday. Apparently, so who's paying for that? Will that be Peel Group? Will the Peel Group be paying for it? Will we be paying for that? Or will the steam packet be paying for the dredger? Because apparently they're going to try to get the Manxman shackled up to our link span at Waterloo Dock as it is now. Watch this space. Hi, Sue in Ballaugh. The island needs specialist people, and apparently we want to increase the population. Would it make sense to have some kind of point system similar to, I believe, Australia does? Nurses, doctors, skilled qualified people have more points than somebody who's retired and doesn't have a skill. So the skilled people will be welcomed here before the others get here, says Sue. Lots of feedback on the lifeboats we were talking about yesterday in Douglas, and apparently, thank you, Terry. He said, so we can't get the number 28 bus to Craignish. We've got a halfway horse tram. Manx Care's in trouble. The Liverpool landing stage went over budget. Now we can't even look after the lifeboat. What's the Isle of Man coming to? Paul says, have a mural of the picture of every person who's responsible for that promenade fiasco to make a lot of people feel like justice has been done. A mural wall. That's it. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phone. It's going to be back tomorrow with another Open Line. WINT.
60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Peter, what's Kelly's Eye looking at today? People pass this in cars at a frantic speed along here, and the people who go in and out are more intent on what they do inside.
Must be a church. No, it's a pub. And we come back to South Quay, and we're looking at the Trafalgar Public House, is what it says above the door. We're here at night, as we usually are. It's got floodlights on, so therefore it shows up that in fact it's built out of brick and not out of stone.
Yes.
I can't date it. It's
very old, isn't it?
Oh, it's not very, very old.
Oh, not very old.
The plans in Douglas Corporation Archive go back to 1887, and it's not in, so it's before that. But it has all the hallmarks of being designed by Horrocks and Lomas, who were in the 1880s, probably for Oakle. Suzanne Cubban refers to when it was here in 1857. But it wasn't that building. It certainly wasn't that building, because the preserved potato works came into this corner.
Oh, really?
And I reckon when that and some of the adjoining old warehouses were demolished, that's when this was actually put up.
Yes.
I'd put it in the 1880s.
It looks as if it's had an extension piece on one end as well, doesn't it?
Yes, I'm almost inclined to say that the piece on one end has been a separate building which has been taken into it, because the floor levels are different now. If they were extending, they would obviously carry through at the same floor level. It's almost an independent building. It's not a very big pub, and for a number of years this was the Douglas Yacht and Motorboat Club clubhouse, and they, I think, put toilets and things and showers in on the ground floor, where of course at one time there was a bar, and they had their club rooms upstairs. Well, now the pub, it would appear, has got toilets and no doubt still showers on the ground floor, and the pub itself is at first floor level. And on a number of occasions when I was going up to the Camera Obscura in the summer, there's a door on the back onto Gasworks Hill, which is open when they're cleaning it, and on the door it says, "Keep this door closed."
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.in.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.